We are 50 days away, my friend. 50
Let's
days away from the
go.
start of the NFL season. It'll be here before we know it. Dallas, Philly kicking things off. And already a little bit of movement. I mean, Philly was a 7-point favorite. Now it's down to 6.5. Most shops. Total in the game is 46.5. BetMGM, Philly is still a 7-point favorite. You got that on Thursday night. Then we're going to have our Friday night game, Kansas City and the LA Chargers. Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. Total in the game is 45.5. And then we get the Sunday slate with a bunch of great games, highlighted by the Sunday night game between the Ravens and the Bills, rematch of last year's playoff game. Packers-Lions is in there as well. Monday night game is going to be the Vikings and the Bears as Ben Johnson makes his debut. So a lot of exciting week one matchups. Kind of under-the-radar game. Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers going against their former teams in Jets, Steelers. So a lot of good ones, Jared Smith. I know you've already pulled the trigger on a couple of week one bets. So tell me, like, off the bat, games you've already bet, some of your favorite plays for week one.
Yeah, I'll just go through my card. I think I have 2 bets already on my card. To be fair, I made them like over a month ago now. So one of them's moved, I think, pretty considerably. The other one, Vikings plus 1.5 at the Bears Monday night. I think that number's still available at BetMGM. That was a pretty, it's like an average size bet. Usually what I do is I'm a 2% guy for my average bets, and then my bigger bets are usually 3. And then if we get up into the 4 or 5% range, like my Toledo over win total bet, which is my biggest college football position so far, that's a big bet for me. So I'm a 2%er for most of my bets. I risk 2%, regardless of what the juice is. Risk usually, and I know sometimes it's like, do you win 2%? Well, what if the odds are minus 130? Then you're really risking 2.5%, really 2.6%. And then you get back to 2. So I like to kind of eliminate that juice and just risk whatever my percentage of how I feel comfortable. In this case, I got minus 115 for the Vikings plus 1.5 at the Bears. And then a bigger bet, a 3%er, Bengals Browns under 46.5. I think that one's moved pretty considerably. That was a syndicate group that gave that out. And I got ahead of that movement. That's down to 45. Now at BetMGM. So that's moved about a point, but I still think it's overright. The key totals in the NFL, 44 is a big one. 45 is another one. And then you get up to like the 47, 51 range. Those are key. I know we talk about key numbers, 3, 7, 10, but key totals in the NFL that tend to land more often than not. 44 is a big one. 45 is another one. So if you find a 45.5, feel pretty good about that. I'd still bet the under there between the Browns and the Bengals. And I guess the thinking behind that is twofold. First step, the Browns, this preseason goes on any longer, they might be losing their entire offense. I mean, it's already been a really rough offseason for Cleveland's offense. But I think the bigger part of this handicap, divisional unders tend to do very well in week one, which makes sense from a narrative perspective. The coaching staffs know each other very well, and divisional games tend to be tighter. Divisional home underdogs tend to do even better in week one. I think it's like 65%. Divisional unders in week one are about 55, 56%. So that's a trend that I would look to in week one. There is always that one team that we think is going to win week one that doesn't. Last year, it was the Bengals against the Patriots. So if that's a team that we think usually underperforms week one, then under feels like a decent bet. I mean, the Bengals defense has to play better this year, right? They can't play any worse than they did last year. I don't know if you caught the quarterback Netflix documentary. Really good information, really good watch, by the way. But you just saw the frustration on Joe Burrow's face throughout the entire year with how bad their defense played, and they made the move in the offseason to go to Al Golden. So you would think you're going to get a much better effort from that Cincy defense this year. And if the Browns keep losing pieces left and right, and if the divisional under trend holds week one, I feel like that Browns-Bengals game could be a little bit lower scoring than we expect.
Makes a ton of sense. And Joe Burrow, throughout his career, if there is a defense that has had his number, it has been that Cleveland defense, especially on the road. He usually never plays well there and typically doesn't play well against that defense. So that makes a lot of sense. Also, combine the fact, Jared, I mean, it's well known now, Cincinnati is arguably the worst team every year starting the season. Burrow's only got one win in his career in weeks 1 and weeks 2. Ruined a lot of people's survivor pools last year against the Patriots, mine included. Yeah, appreciate that thing. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. total that jumped out to me in week one, you mentioned the key number of 45. This one's just under it. It's the Monday night game, Vikings and Bears. I like the under, 44.5 in that game. And my thinking is, so it's Monday night, Jared, right? Obviously, they have their own pregame show. We're going to listen to all these people talk about it. It's going to be J.J. McCarthy making his NFL debut, KOC, that Vikings offense, how great they were last year with Sam Darnold. And then on the other side, it's going to be the Bears, and it's going to be Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, Luther Burden they drafted out of Missouri. All that they're going to talk about for 2 hours is offense, 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 offense. Well, the Vikings do have pretty good defense with a really good head coach in Brian Flores. And you do have a Bears team that are making their first start with Ben Johnson calling plays in front of their home crowd on prime time. I've seen enough Bears games at home in prime time to start the season to know they're not great usually in those spots in those home openers. And then on the flip side, you have J.J. McCarthy making his first NFL start on the road in prime time against a division rival. I think KOC is going to be a little bit conservative, right? Obviously, try and get him going, run the ball, lean on your defense. So I just think that's one of those games, Jared, where leading up to it, everybody's going to be talking about the offenses, and then we look up and it's like a 17-16, NFC North kind of divisional clash. So I do like the under. That was the total that jumped out to me, was that Monday night game.
Yeah, and again, week one, divisional unders, people. I'm not making this up, I promise you. 11-3 over the last 2 seasons. Last year, they went 4-0. To me, these are trends that tend to do very well over the long haul. And the narrative behind it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. So I think that's a great angle. And then in general, let me go back to the divisional home underdogs. That trend has just been unbelievable. Since 2005, divisional home underdogs against the spread in week one, 27-15. 64.5%. Just a crazy. And last year, right, you had the Texans covering against the Colts, or you had the Colts covering against the Texans. Tight game. Line was 3. Texans won by 2. So you had that rare Texans win, no cover situation. You had the Jets over the Bills. Oh, no, excuse me. Actually, no, that was 2 years ago. Last year, there was only one. It was just the Colts over the Texans. That was the only home divisional underdog in week one. And then 2 years ago, in 2023, they went 2-2. Jets beat the Bills outright as a 2.5-point dog. Cowboys blasted the Giants 40-zip. So the Giants did not cover as the home dog in that scenario. Colts lost by 10 to the Jags, so they did not cover. And then that was the Browns over the Bengals, right? 24-3. Browns over the Bengals. That was the Burrow, what the heck is going on with Joe Burrow game. And then, of course, in 2023, the Bengals were really, you thought things were rough last year for the Bengals. 2 years ago was even worse when Burrow couldn't finish the season, and it was the thumb or the wrist mid-year, and that was really a rough year for Joe Burrow. So those divisional home underdogs in week one, again, you got the Browns this year, you got the Falcons this year. I think there's
Seahawks.
one more I'm not thinking of. The Seahawks against the Niners, although that game's really tight. And then to your point on the unders in the divisional games, you got a few more divisional games that could go under in week one. So I think if you just blindly bet all 3 divisional home underdogs and the other divisional unders, and those were the only bets you made in week one, I feel pretty confident you're going to come up on the positive side of the ledger.
I would agree. That was the total that stuck out to me. You and I both on divisional unders in week one. As for a side, I like the Green Bay Packers a lot in week one at home against the Detroit Lions. We have seen some line movement in this one. The Lions were originally a 1.5-point favorite. Green Bay is flipped to a 1.5-point favorite. I'm not going to mess around. I'm just going to take them on the money line. Minus 125. BetMGM, you can shop around, get some better prices closer to about minus 115. I do like the Packers, though, Jared, in that game a lot. And the Lions very much remind me of Ohio State coming into the season. It's kind of like the same thing. A lot of the reasons people are fading Ohio State week 1 against Texas, losing both coordinators. It's the same thing with the Lions, losing both coordinators that first game against a divisional team. Jordan Love's healthy to start the season. You got to play on the road in Lambeau, obviously a tough place to win. You and I talked about the Lions yesterday. I think this is a team that I think they missed the playoffs, Jared, to be honest with you. Plus 185, I think that's a good bet on Detroit. Everybody's talking about the coordinators, rightfully so. They also lost 8 coaches. They lost those 2 guys, and then obviously those coaches bring the other coaches with them. So the Lions have to replace a whole bunch of people. Such a big loss, Jared, was losing their center, Frank Ragnow, the center, especially when your quarterback is Jared Goff, and he's not a mobile guy. He's a pocket passer. Every quarterback, regardless if they have the athleticism of Lamar or Peyton Manning, they like a clean pocket, especially up the middle, certainly Jared Goff. And I think that's going to be a huge loss week 1 and throughout the season for the Lions. So that is something to keep in mind as well. And look, when these teams in the NFL are really good, 2, 3, 4 years, obviously it's a copycat league, right? And these other teams are going to poach players and coaches from your team if you're having success. The good teams stay good because they normally have elite quarterbacks, right? The Patriots were good for all those years because of Brady. Colts were good all those years because of Manning. Packers because of Rodgers. Steelers because of Ben. The Ravens have been good, Lamar, right? Chiefs, Mahomes. You can go down the list. Are we really sure Jared Goff's that guy? Are we, before Ben Johnson got there, we weren't talking about Jared Goff. We weren't viewing him the way we are now. I get Gibbs is one of the best backs. Amon-Ra is one of the best receivers. Jared, I worry that there's some big-time regression coming from Jared Goff. I think Ben Johnson made him look really good. And, I think as the season goes on, there's going to be an adjustment on the Lions. You already saw it a little bit here early in the season with them being the favorite to them being the dog. But the Lions have been so good ATS the last 3 years. If you have just blind bet the Lions, you have made a ton of money in the NFL. I think that's going to start to catch up with them now that the coordinators are gone. Goff takes a step back. I think it starts week 1. I love Green Bay money line.
It probably has to take a step back. I think the biggest question is how big of a step back, because they won 15 games last year. So even if they take a step back and they win 13 or 12 games, it's still a pretty damn good year.
Sure.
The argument against what you're saying is, well, the Eagles, they had that brain drain where Steichen and Gannon left town, but then they fired all the other coordinators. And then they went through 2023
right
with a brand new coordinator group, and those guys were awful. And then they fired those guys, and then they brought in 2 new coordinators in 2024 and won a Super Bowl. So, there is some precedent for a team cleaning. Now, to be fair, Kellen Moore, I think, is a big step above where the offensive coordinator was 2 years ago. And I think their defense was obviously significantly better as well. So it's kind of a weird catch-22 where obviously there's a brain drain there, a massive brain drain in the coaching room. But now they get a chance to start fresh, and nobody really knows what they're going to do week 1. Whereas Ben Johnson kind of does have a little bit of a tendency. Although when I was watching quarterback, my respect for Ben Johnson went away. I mean, that dude is just a genius, man. He is so freaking good. So there's push and pull, but I would say on average, I would agree. I'm down on Detroit this year.